Daniel chapter 10 Introduction. The Invisible War and the Warrior Prince. Daniel 10 is one of the most electrifying chapters in the Bible because it pulls back the cosmic curtain on an invisible war behind our visible world. It reveals that prayer is not just communication, it's a spiritual warfare with the real territorial evil forces. Remember, when you pray, heaven hears. When you persist, heaven fights. When you endure, heaven reveals. Your persistent prayers wins battles you cannot see. Every prayer you whisper shakes the unseen realm and summons the armies of heaven into action. The historical setting, tension and delay. Verses 1 to 4. The true message behind the delay. Verse 1. In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar. Its message was true and it concerned a great war. The understanding of the message came to him in a vision. In his first year, 538 BC, Cyrus issued a decree for the Jewish people to return and rebuild Jerusalem. However, by his third year, in 536 BC, the work was forced to a halt because local enemies were filing false reports and legal complaints with Persian officials. Ezra chapter 4 verses 4 to 16. Even though the official word was go and build, the actual experience on the ground was stop and wait. This created a season of intense confusion and disappointment as the people faced a painful gap between the king's promise and their daily reality. In this gap between promise and progress, the scripture affirms this message was true. It was an infallible heavenly fact regarding a great war. It revealed that the local problems in Jerusalem were merely a small picture of a massive, ongoing spiritual and geopolitical battlefield. Even when your progress feels blocked by earthly messiness, remember, these struggles are but small shadows of a larger battle that God is already controlling. When the earth is in conflict, heaven is still in command. The weight of spiritual intercession. Verse 2. At that time, I, Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. Daniel's mourning was not a casual sadness, but a deep, ritualized lament, known in Hebrew as mitabel. In the ancient world, this was a formal expression of grief that required stepping away from normal routines to focus entirely on the spiritual burden. Daniel was grieved not only by the stalled progress in Jerusalem, but by the reality of the great war raging in the unseen realm. Instead of merely complaining about the opposition, Daniel turned his frustration into fasting and prayer. Your season of grief is not a dead end. It's a doorway for your next level of clarity. When earthly work stops, heavenly warriors rise and your tears become a fuel for God's next move in you. The discipline of the soul. Verse 3. I ate no choice food. No meat or wine touched my lips, and I used no lotions at all until the 3 weeks were over. Daniel practiced intentional self-denial to sharpen his spiritual sensitivity. In the Persian court, choice food represented the king's provision and the world's security. By refusing it, Daniel declared that his true sustenance came from God alone. This act proves that clarity comes with a cost. To hear the whisper of heaven, he had to silence the appetites of the earth. His fast was a refusal to be comforted by the world, while God's plan seemed delayed. When you feel a delay, step away from the comforts of Babylon to hear the voice of the Almighty. The place of encounter. Verse 4. On the 24th day of the first month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, the Tigris. The timing here is profound. According to Exodus 12:18, the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread conclude on the 21st day of the first Hebrew month Nisan. By the 24th day, Daniel had completed his 3 weeks of fasting. While the rest of the nation had just finished celebrating their historical liberation from Egypt, Daniel still kept his focus on the banks of the Tigris, a massive artery of Mesopotamian trade and imperial power, refusing to move until he saw a fresh move of God. Daniel transformed a secular riverbank at the heart of the empire into a sacred altar, proving that no earthly environment can block a divine visitation. While others may return to business as usual once the holiday ends, your steady persistence in your place of prayer is what positions you for a vision of a lifetime. The vision of the heavenly warrior, verses 5 to 12. Composite imagery of glory, verses 5 to 6. The majesty of the messenger, verse 5. I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen, with a belt of the finest gold around his waist. After 3 weeks of persistent prayer, Daniel's physical sight was eclipsed by a spiritual vision. He saw a figure clothed in linen, the specific garment of the priests, Leviticus 16:4, representing absolute holiness and purity. The belt of finest gold, identified in other translations as gold from Uphaz, signified the highest gold quality, representing divine authority and kingship. This description is strikingly similar to the vision of the glorified Christ among the 7 golden lampstands in Revelation 1 verses 13 to 15, suggesting that Daniel was witnessing a Christophany, a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. This encounter reveals that when we seek God with persistence, He does not just send a memo or a message, He sends His presence. The radiance of heaven, verse 6. His body was like chrysolite, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like a gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like a sound of a multitude. The imagery here shifts from the messenger's clothing to his supernatural essence, using elements that signify power and purity. His body like chrysolite. Chrysolite is a gemstone known for its brilliant gold or yellow-green hue. This suggests a transparent, glowing radiance that reflects the weight of God's glory. His face like lightning and eyes like flaming torches. This speaks of an all-consuming intensity and an all-seeing gaze. Nothing is hidden from the eyes of the warrior prince. His arms and legs like burnished bronze. Burnished bronze is the bronze refined in the fiery furnace. It symbolizes strength that has been tested and a judgment that is ready to march. His voice like a multitude. This is a sound of overwhelming authority. Your prayer might feel like a solo, but the answer comes with the volume of an army. When the fear of the great war shakes you, remember, the one beside you shines brightest and reigns above it all. The human response to the divine, verses 7 to 9. The unseen presence. Verse 7. I, Daniel, was the only one who saw the vision. The men with me did not see it, but such terror overwhelmed them that they fled and hid themselves. Human strength cannot stand before the glory of a heavenly messenger, so they flee and hide. Spiritual breakthrough happens in solitude only with the person God has chosen. Others may stand right beside you at the riverbank of life, yet they cannot perceive what God is doing within you. Revelation is a private experience in a public setting. Not everyone will understand the burden or the vision God has entrusted to you. The world may not see the reason, but it surely cannot escape its impact. Collapse of human capacity. Verse 8. So I was left alone, gazing at this vision. I had no strength left. My face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless. In the presence of absolute holiness, even his finest qualities faded, leaving him utterly helpless. To be helpless is not a weakness, it's a holy prerequisite. God often brings us to the end of our own strength, where we are left alone and pale, so that the subsequent victory is unmistakably His. To be filled with the revelation of heaven, you must first be emptied of the strength of earth, overwhelmed into silence. Verse 9. Then I heard him speaking, and as I listened to him, I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. The sheer frequency of divine voice shatters Daniel's remaining strength, causing his defenses to collapse in an instant. The weight of the revelation did not energize him. It overwhelms him into a profound stillness. This deep sleep is a kind of divine anesthesia, a total surrender of the physical body under the staggering intensity of God's presence. His face to the ground reflects a total absence of self-effort. This is a point of total, unconscious reliance on God. The divine response to the breathless soul. Verses 10 to 12. The touch of empowerment. Verse 10. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. Just as Daniel reaches a point of complete collapse, heaven responds with a touch. The same presence that overwhelmed him now begins to restore him. God does not leave his servants in their brokenness. His touch revives even when strength is gone. Yet notice, Daniel could not immediately stand. He is first lifted to his hands and knees. Restoration is progressive. The purpose of the encounter. Verse 11. He said, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words I am about to speak to you and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. While Daniel is trembling on his hands and knees, feeling small and shattered, the messenger addresses him as highly esteemed. Heaven speaks your worth before it assigns your work. Before the mission is revealed, his identity is affirmed. Then comes the command to rise. God's word empowered him with the strength to stand. Step by step, he moves from the dust to standing on his hand and knees and then on his feet, still trembling but standing. Restoration leads to readiness. You're not just a spectator of God's glory. You're called to stand up, to be a participant in His purposes. Heaven's immediate audibility from day one. Verse 12. Then he continued, Do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. Though Daniel had been mourning and fasting for 3 weeks, heaven had moved on day one. 2 things marked Daniel's prayer. 1. A mind set to gain understanding, and 2. A heart humble before God. This was not a casual praying. It was an intentional pursuit mixed with a total surrender. Such prayers do not echo aimlessly. They register immediately, igniting a spiritual chain reaction in the unseen realm. God does not wait for you to reach a certain level of perfection before He listens. He responds to the very first impulse of a humble heart. There is no lag between a sincere heart and God's ear. Michael, the warrior prince, and the conflict. Verses 13 to 21. The mystery of the mid-air conflict. Verse 13. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. This verse is the apocalyptic heart of the chapter. It uses symbolic and layered description to uncover and reveal real historical struggles. Standing on the bank of the river Tigris, Daniel is shown that behind earthly systems and human rulers like Cyrus of Persia, high-ranking spiritual forces are at work. The prince of Persia mentioned here is not a human king, but a demonic and satanic force that controlled the Persian Empire in the spirit world. This evil spirit was so powerful that it fought against God's messenger to block God's message from reaching the earth. Daniel's answer was delayed for 21 days, the exact length of his fast. The delay you experience is not a denial from heaven, but the result of a cosmic battle in the unseen realm. To break the deadlock, Michael the archangel was dispatched. His name is a battle cry, meaning who is like God? A direct challenge to any force trying to rival God's authority. Michael is the heavenly commander sent to shatter strongholds and push God's purpose forward. If you feel heavy opposition while praying, it's because your prayer is a threat to a territory. Satan strives to keep God's promises paralyzed in the heavens because he fears a heart anchored in eternity. He knows that once you see the end of the story, you cannot be discouraged by the trials of life. Delay or resistance means that your prayer has entered a battlefield of the spirit. While Satan struggles to keep the future concealed, the king fights harder to ensure his plans of victory are revealed. The scope of the vision. Verse 14. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. The angel clarifies that this isn't just about Daniel's local building project in Jerusalem. It's about the future destiny of God's people. While we pray for right now solutions, God answers with forever strategies. He's never limited to our timeline. While we focus on the now, He speaks into the what's next, enlarging our perspective. The silence of the overwhelmed. Verse 15. While He was saying this to me, I bowed with my face toward the ground and was speechless. Faced with with the sheer magnitude of the vision, the weight of the cosmic conflict, and the long seasons of struggle ahead, Daniel's voice fails him once again. He becomes muted and speechless because the burden of knowing what is to come is often too heavy for human words to carry. This is the silence of a soul overwhelmed by a revelation. Sometimes, when God speaks deeply, your spirit needs time to process what your mind cannot fully grasp. The restoration of the soul, verses 16 to 18. The strengthening of the voice, verse 16. Then one who looked like a man touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. I said to the one standing before me, I am overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord, and I am helpless. Daniel was struggling with profound vision-induced trauma, drained, shaken, and rendered speechless. But then came the divine touch, directly to his lips. In an instant, the voice that had been silenced by fear was restored by grace. God strengthens your expression first. He doesn't want you to just hear Him. He wants to give you the ability to respond to Him. But look at what Daniel says once he could finally speak. He doesn't offer a polished prayer. He expresses his anguish and his helplessness. This reveals a beautiful truth. When God restores your voice, He isn't looking for performance. He is looking for honesty. You don't have to impress God. You just have to be real with Him. He gives you the ability to speak your truth and your pain in His presence so that you are no longer a passive observer but an active participant in the divine conversation, admitting our human limits. Verse 17. How can I, your servant, talk with you, my Lord? My strength is gone and I can hardly breathe. Daniel is completely honest about his physical and emotional exhaustion. Facing a divine messenger has drained every ounce of human strength from him. In the presence of the infinite, the finite man is breathless. It's an honest confession of a soul that has nothing left to give. God performs His deepest work in the breathless spaces of our lives, using our exhaustion as a starting point for His purpose. The touch of transformation. Verse 18. Again, the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength. This third touch provides a supernatural infusion of stamina. While the first touch, verse 10, lifted Daniel to his knees, and the second, verse 16, restored his speech, this touch stabilized and strengthened him inwardly. Rather than giving a lecture on being strong, God imparts strength directly, a divine transmission of power. Daniel's breathless state created a vacuum that divine strength now fills. He never gives a message without giving a muscle to carry it. You don't have to manufacture your own energy to finish what God started. His strength supplies the very strength you need to sustain the vision God has given you. The voice that reassures. Verse 19. Do not be afraid, O man highly esteemed, he said. Peace. Be strong now. Be strong. When he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, Speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. This verse shifts from the touch of God to the voice of God. What the touch began, the word now completes. Notice a precise sequence. First, the identity is confirmed. Highly esteemed. Before God strengthens you, He reminds you who you are. Second, peace is imparted. Peace, because true strength cannot settle in a restless heart. Finally, a double dose of strength is commanded. Be strong now. Be strong. This is an impartation through divine declaration. God whispers our name to silence our fear and speaks to our heart to make the vision clear. The man who was once silent, overwhelmed, and breathless is now ready, steady, and attentive, finally positioned to receive the strategy needed for the battles ahead. Persia, Greece, and the Book of Truth, verses 20-21. The revelation of the ongoing warfare. Verse 20. So he said, Do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia, and when I go, the prince of Greece will come. The angel now reveals the full scope of his mission. He came to reveal the future and give Daniel an apocalyptic glimpse into the ongoing struggle of the spiritual realm. The prince of Persia and the prince of Greece are not human rulers, but territorial spiritual forces influencing earthly kingdoms. This proves that world events are not merely political, they are deeply spiritual in origin. The messenger makes it clear that spiritual warfare is continuous and shifting. The mention of the Prince of Greece arriving as the angel departs to fight Persia shows that as one territorial force is resisted, the next phase of battle begins. Yet the messenger shows no discouragement. He speaks of these cosmic battles simply as part of his divine assignment.
Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
This offers us a vital perspective shift. The battles you face are not interruptions to your journey, they are the environment of your journey. You can stand firm knowing that for every conflict on earth, there are fighters already assigned in the spiritual realm. The sovereign script, verse 21. But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. Before returning to the battlefield, the messenger anchors Daniel in the book of truth, the unchanging reality. While earthly empires like Persia and Greece fluctuate and fail, the divine record remains resolute. This is the ultimate perspective shift. The headlines of earth are always subject to the footnotes of the book of truth. Your life is not unfolding by accident. They are a script written in the book of truth, and heaven is actively engaged in ensuring its fulfillment despite every shadow of opposition. What God has written, no battle can erase. Conclusion. The messenger of God has touched you, and your faithfulness has created a version of you that the enemy is terrified to face. Stop looking at the princes of your problems and start looking at the book of your purpose, where God has already written the outcome. You are not fighting for victory. You are standing to receive the victory God has already written in the book of truth. Rise from the dust of your Tigris. You are highly esteemed. Heaven is in motion, and your answer is unfolding. You have the strength. You have the message. Now stand firm in the truth.